Hey, what's up, guys? Today we are talking about how to set up your day for success, and it all starts with the morning routine. Who am I? I'm Ben Brown, owner of Body Systems Labs, BSL Nutrition, and we have been in the industry for the last couple of years. Again, BSL Nutrition. Today we're talking about how to set up your morning routine for success. I've been a personal trainer and nutrition coach the last 15 years. And so having worked with hundreds, if not thousands of clients, I have a pretty good idea about what that morning routine, what's important about the morning routine, why it's important to set ourselves up for success, as well as what specifically we can do, what are some easy things that we can do in that morning routine that's going to really drive some big needle movers for the rest of the day. And so one of the big things about our morning routine and about being productive in general is the mindset of being proactive versus reactive. And I'll give you an example of what most people do in the morning that has to do with being reactive is waking up late, hitting the snooze button multiple times, rolling out of bed. You're already feeling rushed because you're running late. You may not have time for breakfast, or you go and open up the fridge. There's nothing in there and you don't have time to cook food. So you jump in the car, you go through Starbucks, the line's super long, you're getting further stressed out, you know you're going to be late for work, and the cycle goes on and on and on. That's an example of being reactive to our situation, versus being proactive is setting yourself up for success. And that would be an example of rolling out of bed a little bit earlier, not hitting the snooze button multiple times, or at least knowing, hey, if I need to wake up earlier, I'm going to set the alarm clock a little bit earlier so that I can hit that snooze button, a few times without feeling rushed. Knowing what you're already going to have for breakfast, if you're going to have breakfast, making sure it's something that you know how to prep, easily prep, and have time to eat it before heading to work. It's just a really small and seemingly simple example of being proactive versus reactive, but it's that whole mindset of taking accountability for our actions that sets ourselves up for success long-term throughout the day. And so when you're on your way to work and someone cuts you off and getting really pissed off about it, or you show up to work and then you have a meeting and then you're upset, or something didn't get done. And oftentimes it's these emotions that we have on a daily basis that we react to, as opposed to possibly using it as an opportunity for growth. It's like, okay, so that just happened. What do I need to do to overcome that and ensure that I'm continuing to move towards my daily goals? And so I'll preface all of this by saying that a good morning routine starts the night before. And it starts by being proactive the night before, by kind of having already an idea of what that morning's going to look like. And that way, when things, when the curveball gets thrown your way, is we know how to navigate it. And so I'll tell you, what I do and have clients do that works really well is to journal in bed or wherever the night before. And this extends far beyond just the morning routine. It extends into what you're going to do for the day, how you're going to be productive, both in your business and in your family life, with your kids, and certainly with your nutrition. But I believe that it all starts the night before. And so an example of how to be proactive with your morning routine would be in bed the night before, having a journal. And I use a journal every night and this is a phenomenal journal that I highly recommend. It's called, what is it called? It's called Productive Action. Productive Action, one word. It's EFFIC, EFFIC.co. And the owner, Dave Ruel, he created the journal as a means to help navigate you through kind of what are the big needle movers that you should be focusing on a day-to-day basis. And so at the beginning of the journal, basically you lay out, well, I'm sure you've all heard the analogy of, if you're going to fill up a jar with rocks, you've got big rocks, you've got pebbles, and you've got sand. And the idea is that on a daily basis, most of what we tend to think about is the sand, such that we fill the jar up with sand first, and then pebbles, and then the big rocks. But because we've only been focusing on the sand, there's no room for the big rocks. And those big rocks are the things that we really need to move forward in life, to be productive in life, to be successful in whatever that means for you. And so conversely, if we fill the jar up with the big rocks, then the pebbles and the sand, we can fit it all in, but we need to know what steps we need to take to just focus on those big needle movers, those big rocks on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what carries over into your morning routine is as far as the journal goes, it's as simple as saying, okay, you know, what's my day, kind of mapping out what my day is going to look like for tomorrow in terms of saying, you know, here's what my breakfast, it could be breaking in every single thing down by time, you know, and in this journal, there's like there's a section where you can break it down by hours. So it could basically be your schedule, but it could be as easy as, you know, saying, all right, I'm going to make kind of a veggie omelet for breakfast. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to hydrate, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to make breakfast, and then I'm going to get the kids going, and whatever that looks like. But if you have already thought that through, then it can be extremely valuable to the degree that, you know, you're not waking up and feeling stressed because you don't have anything in place. So I will say that if for all aspects of life, trying to be positive, trying to be proactive versus reactive is really, really important. Now, let's kind of jump into what a morning routine, what a seemingly good morning routine should look like. And for most people, it should start with, you know, not really waking up to an alarm clock or not waking up in a stressful state. There's various alarm clocks that you can use that simulate like the sun rising. So it's an alarm clock, but it's a light. And so the light just naturally starts to increase in brightness, and that can be something that wakes you up versus the beep beep of the alarm clock, whatever works best for you. But just the stress response that we know that happens from the alarm clock, especially if you're in a deep REM sleep, can really increase cortisol levels. And we already are doing so many things on a daily basis that contribute to those increases in cortisol, that anything we can do to minimize would be beneficial. So you're waking up at a time that's appropriate for you so that you have time to do everything that you want to do. Upon waking, what I recommend that most people do is hydrate. And, you know, so that can basically be drinking a glass of water, 16 to 20 ounces of lukewarm water. And obviously that's just to get hydrated. You know, we've gone all night without drinking anything. And so we need to get hydrated. But especially considering that, you know, some statistics say that 75% of the American population is dehydrated, and all of the implications of being dehydrated. But another major component of that, and one that I tend to think about that seems to resonate the most with me, and that I also make sure to implement with my clients, is the power of being hydrated as it pertains to digestion. And so most people have, you know, it's crazy, but excuse me, a similar statistic suggests that up to 75% of the American population also has digestive issues. And so, you know, I don't think that's, I think that there's a massive correlation there, is because most people are dehydrated, their digestion sucks, and they can't break down their foods, they can't absorb their nutrients, their energy levels suffer, and it's sort of this vicious cycle. So something that isn't really sexy but works really well is just drinking a bunch of water upon waking. And the benefit of drinking the warm water is it's easy to take down versus trying to drink 16 ounces of freezing cold water. And so it's just easy to drink. Now, the way that I spice it up, or sex it up, if you will, because everyone wants that quick fix, sort of that magic bullet, and it has to sound, you know, it has to sound fancier than it really is, you know, it's what I call my morning elixir. And so we take that 16 to 20 ounces of water, and then you squeeze in a whole lime or lemon, And the benefit of the lime or lemon is, well, one is because it's nutrient dense, specifically with micronutrients. And those micronutrients, like we focus all the time on the macronutrients in terms of like protein, carbs, and fats, and how much should we be getting, blah, blah, blah. But we don't focus enough on micronutrients, and those are the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that we should be getting from the food that we're eating. And so two things is, one is because our food quality is poor and our soil quality is poor. Even if you're eating a whole foods diet, you're not getting enough of those micronutrients. Examples being vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, the B vitamins, of getting in the potassium, the magnesium, the right amounts of sodium, and all the other electrolytes, so, bicarbonate, phosphorus. And so anything we can do to boost nutrition, again, by squeezing the lemon or the lime into the water, can go a long way to boost our nutritional status, which is great. Lemons and limes are super high in vitamin C. They're really high in potassium, and most people have a kind of this imbalance of sodium to potassium ratio. Not saying that they're consuming too much sodium, but they're not consuming certainly enough potassium. And so immediately boosting those potassium levels and the importance of these micronutrients in supporting all of these energy systems, right? How many people do you know that suffer from energy, specifically in the morning? And even to the degree that we wake up first thing in the morning, we feel like we need to be drinking a ton of coffee to mask our energy problems. And don't get me wrong, I got nothing wrong with coffee. I love it, but we're definitely overusing it. And so my suggestion would be, before that morning coffee, would be to take down that 16 to 20 ounces of water with lemon or lime juice. One of the other components of the lemon and lime juice, again, next to its nutritional value, is it's very alkalizing, and we tend to be in a more acidic state because of stress, because of inflammation, because of the types of foods that we eat, lack of sleep, all of those types of things. And so anything we can do to press more alkalinity is a good thing. And then next to that is, again, going back to the importance of stimulating proper digestion. And so I don't really, truthfully, like, I don't have research to support this stuff, but to be fair, like, I haven't looked, I know it works, and it works well for my clients, and it gives you something to create some accountability and to focus on. And so why not try it? And so the benefit of the lemon or lime juice, it helps stimulate digestive juices, is, again, so the nutritional quality of our food sucks, but also our digestion sucks. And I talked about how 75% of the U.S. population suffers from digestive issues, and then also 75% of the U.S. population suffers from dehydration. Now, I see that as a pretty important correlation. And so by taking down not only the water, but the alkaline lemon and lime juice, then we can stimulate our gastric juices, so that when we do eat breakfast, we've got enough hydrochloric acid and pancreatic enzymes, and it stimulates bile in the gallbladder. It helps stimulate detoxification pathways. I'm not going to say it detoxifies you, because I don't think that's true, but it helps stimulate the enzymes and fluids that we would utilize to effectively detoxify. And so that's seemingly a pretty powerful, again, elixir that you can be taking down first thing in the morning. That's going to go a long way towards improving health, energy, even energy focus, things like that. And so the one other thing that I personally will add to that, again, and it kind of depends on the day, like, and it's part of being like the proactive versus reactive. Like my son, Caleb, he's been waking up at 5 a.m., just pounding on the door, in which case I'm jumping out of bed, dealing with him. And sometimes that whole thing goes out the window. Like, so it goes, I mean, that's shit that just happens with having kids, having 3 kids, having a kid that's, under 3 years old, and all of the nuances of that. But the best thing we can do is kind of be prepared, and then and then if shit happens, it happens. But so what I'll also add to the water and the lime juice first thing in the morning is I'll add a couple scoops of electrolyte powder, and I'm forgetting the name of the electrolyte powder, but I'll either use that or I'll use our Complete Essentials, which also has sodium, magnesium, and potassium in it. Just again, to just kind of boost those nutrients. And then it kind of depends on if it's a morning where I'm eating breakfast or not. And there's certain mornings where I will not eat an intermittent fast. And basically the only way I do it is, or the way I do it is on days when I'm going to be training, which is typically 4 days a week, I will make sure I eat a good breakfast because I'll train mid-morning. On days when I don't train, I will just kind of skip breakfast. Like today, I knew I was going to do this Facebook Live, so I will, I'm not eating until, I don't know, probably noon or 1. We'll see how I feel. And so I'll just do water. Did my morning elixir, and that will be it for the morning. So then the next thing is what works really well for people. And this is something that's been touted by high performing individuals from sports to business, across the board is, and what a lot of people are talking about now is meditation. What I like to call it is kind of guided breathing, because I don't know, I feel like meditation has this kind of this woo, kind of terminology to it and can turn people off. But when we think about it in terms of guided breathing, there's massive benefits to doing these deep breathing exercises, to doing this guided meditation in the morning, or really any time of day as it pertains to productivity, as it pertains to focus. But there's also really good research to suggest that daily meditation contributes significantly towards basically improved brain health. It helps increase the amount of gray matter in our brain, helps us retain information more easily, helps us manage stress more effectively, helps us, and then ultimately, focus better throughout the day, so that you can focus on those big rocks that we talked about earlier, and the few things that you need to focus on during that day in order to contribute to move yourself towards those big rocks, those big needle movers. And so if I can, and to be completely transparent, this is something that I'm struggling with at the moment, again, because my kid keeps waking up at the ass crack of dawn every single day, and it then leads me into being more reactive than I'd like to be. Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I'd wake up without an alarm and I'd drink my morning elixir, and then I'd sit down and have this peaceful meditation. But let's be honest, right? How many of us that are 30 and over, or certainly that have families, can actually do this? Is not that many. And so if you can, cool, go for it, create that routine. If you can't, then try and structure it in at some point in your day. And so oftentimes it's okay, I'll sit down, and maybe it's 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I'll sit down to do my 10 minutes of meditation. But when I can do it, and certainly when I can do it consistently, I find that it's immensely valuable in terms of helping improve my daily focus. Again, on helping me focus on the big needle movers and not getting lost in the minutia of this type of, getting lost in Facebook and social media and focusing on the sand, right? When I talked about the jar and the big rocks and pebbles and sand, we tend to get too myopic on those little things that we need to do that aren't contributing towards the big picture. And so when I can meditate on a daily basis, again, it doesn't happen as frequently as I'd like, but if I can just get 2 or 3 days in a row, I notice a significant difference in terms of how productive I'm able to be. But also what I find really beneficial for me is how it kind of helps me frame my productivity mindset and not get so disturbed by the shiny objects that are always going on around us. And the way that I facilitate the morning meditation is just by, there's an app on the phone called Headspace. And Headspace, it's free for the first 10 days. It's 10-minute guided meditation. One of the things that kept me away from meditating for so long was, again, I think the stigma associated with the term meditation, and not trying to be like too woo woo out there, but once I started to do it, well, also the fact that I thought, it had to be like 30 minutes at a time for it to be effective. And honestly, you can get just as much value out of 5 or 10 minutes. And that's what's cool about the Headspace app, is it's only 10 minutes. And so I'd highly recommend that you jump in and try and utilize the Headspace app. I mean, they take you like the first 10 days, there's programs for every single day, and he'll just take you through it. And the dude's voice is like really soothing. And what I've noticed is the more I do it, the more I can start to more instantly kind of get into that deep, almost like a thoughtlessness space, because I'm certainly the type of person that's distracted and thinking about a million different things at once. And the more that I practice the Headspace app, and really I'm just doing 10 minutes, like I find if I try and go above that, and I get too lost with distraction. And so I'm still kind of at this novice stage, but I found it to be very beneficial for my clients as well as myself. And again, as the more that I do it, the more that I can instantly get into, like, I just start doing the deep breathing, and the more I can instantly get into that deep, almost thoughtlessness space of I don't know, of meditation, of meditative state. I don't know what the terminology is for that. And that's cool because when it's over, you kind of come out of your meditative state, and you kind of have this feeling of like, it's all good. Like, I don't have those stressors bothering me that I had like upon waking. I feel like in a much calmer state. And then again, as I feel like that really kind of, I really feel like that contributes to how I do things the rest of the day. And so as I talk about this, it increases my drive to want to be more consistent with it. And it'll come. It's just figuring out how to get my kids to sleep past 5 a.m. in the morning. Okay, so we covered wake up, hydration, if you can, like 10 minutes of guided meditation can be very valuable. And then nutrition. So nutrition really is like personal preference, I guess, and it totally depends on what your goals are. I had some questions from people about kind of what they should be doing first thing in the morning. Is this good? Is this bad? I would say, generally speaking, that most people should be eating breakfast first thing in the morning, and it should consist of some lean proteins, be it eggs, chicken, lean beef, chicken sausage, something like that, some veggies if possible, some fruit, anything really that is whole food that they feel like they do well with, that gives them good energy. But what a lot of people get in trouble with is starting the day with junk food, starting the day with cereal or Pop-Tarts or pastries, plus their coffee with their sugar. And I think that's a recipe for disaster. And that's why one of my main goals, and not necessarily a goal, but just one of the things that it takes a significant amounts of importance in my life right now, is trying to be home for my kids first thing in the morning, when they get up, and trying to ensure that they eat a good breakfast. And we know from research that, what kids eat, what people eat earlier on in the day has a significant effect on how their brain functions later on in the day. So kids that eat more protein earlier on in the day have a much more focus, tend to score better on tests than kids that eat refined sugar and processed foods like cereal and pastries and things like that. And also because I appreciate, to some degree, being with my kids first thing in the morning, and instead of being gone all day long and not getting to see them. And then of course it's helpful for my wife as well. But I take a lot of pride in and trying to feed them well first thing in the morning to set them up for success, to teach them good eating habits. And so some of the things that we typically do for them in the morning, we always keep it easy. Anyone that tells you that breakfast has to be fancy, if they give you these elaborate recipes, it's, for most people, it's just not realistic. And so our kind of go-to would be some sort of chicken sausage. Usually we'll use like Applegate Farms chicken sausage and just saute those up. Those are pretty tasty, relatively low in fat. And then we'll combine that with some fruit, whether it be grapes or apple or berries when they're in season. We'll do eggs. I'll do eggs. Like, I tend to do eggs for myself most mornings, and my wife, Christina. And so if one or two of them, like my son, Caleb, again, he's 2.5, he's just starting to dig eating eggs in the morning. And so I'll make him a couple eggs with some toast, and then I'll have a couple sausages. And sometimes he eats it. Sometimes it ends up on the floor. Sometimes he gives it to the dog. It's just some of the stuff of having a 2-year-old boy, I suppose. The girls, like Ava, she loves eggs, won't eat toast. Zoe hates eggs, except if they're hard-boiled eggs. Loves toast. I don't know. It's just all over the place, but it's just trying to give them something healthy. So again, we'll do something like chicken sausage, some eggs, some fruit, keeping it easy. This morning, Caleb woke up at 5:15, and I was trying to keep him busy, so he helped me make pancakes, and we did like a protein pancake, like the Kodiak cakes from Costco, and then we spice it up even more. We add some applesauce, we add some more eggs to it to increase the protein intake. We add some whole milk, or some raw whole milk to it to add more fat and protein to it. And so they've got this really nutritionally dense protein pancake for breakfast that, well, at least Ava and Caleb like. Zoe, she's not interested, so she had a hard-boiled egg and some salami and a piece of toast and jam for breakfast. And it's just like, that's just how it goes. But I make sure for myself that on mornings that I'm going to train, typically if I train mid-morning, I get a pretty solid breakfast, and especially if I know I'm going to be training hard. And so usually that's 3 or 4 whole eggs cooked in coconut oil or butter. And then I'll have 1 or 2 pieces of like Ezekiel toast. That's the sprouted grain toast. And the kids tend to like more like the Dave's Killer Bread, which is still whole grain. I don't think it's as healthy per se as the Ezekiel toast, but and I would say it's probably higher in gluten content. If that's something that you care about, then fine. I generally do care, but not enough to like eliminate the breads completely. I tend to opt more towards the healthier choices. And for me specifically, the Ezekiel toast, because it is sprouted and because of the sprouted grains, we tend not to react as much to the gluten. At least that's, I don't know, that's the idea. And so that is, I'll combine that with, so we do breakfast, like I said, toast, and then I'll certainly have coffee in the morning after I've had the morning elixir. And that's one of the things that I think people get into trouble with, as I mentioned earlier, is people using coffee and caffeine to mask poor energy levels. And so if you can go out of your way to make sure that you're getting hydrated before you start drinking coffee earlier on in the day, and then even better is if you can put in like the lemon or lime juice, then it's a win-win. And the other thing about caffeine, or coffee specifically, is that while it has some beneficial properties, it can also further contribute to dehydration as well as pulling out minerals, because it acts as a diuretic, so we can lose the electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, things like that from the cells that we need that we're already deficient in. And so the benefit of adding some of that citrus fruit, the lemon or the lime, plus the added electrolytes, especially the ones that you would get from the complete essentials, can be beneficial in that morning window. And so that is a brief look at what my morning routine looks like, what the kids' morning routine looks like. I think that for a few things that I'll touch on is for people that don't eat breakfast, and feel like it may be an issue, I guess it depends on what your goals are. And my suggestion would be, in the grand scheme of things, so like in the scope of a given day, if your goal is weight loss, then what matters most is how your calories are adding up day by day, week by week. And if you're over consuming calories, if you're eating too much food at the end of the day, then you're going to gain weight. It doesn't matter when you eat those meals. It doesn't matter if you wait until noon and only eat within this short eating window because you're intermittent fasting. It doesn't matter if you eat first thing in the morning and you don't eat again until nighttime. There's no right way, the research would suggest, and really what you feel is right for you. But I will say, for most people, and especially if weight's an issue, especially if body fat's an issue, then blood sugar likely is an issue. And for people with blood sugar issues, if you feel like you are kind of going on this roller coaster day in and day out, well, throughout the day, meaning you eat breakfast and then you feel like you kind of crash and need some sugar or caffeine or a pick-me-up in that mid-morning, and then you eat lunch, again, you get a mid-afternoon crash and you feel like blood sugar might be an issue, then I find immense value in eating consistently throughout the day, making sure you're absolutely eating a consistent breakfast, lunch, dinner. Now, if you feel like you're the type of person that just has no taste for breakfast, you can't stomach the thought of eating protein, specifically animal protein for breakfast, which is a significant amount of people, then fine. Like, you don't have to eat later on in the day. But what I will say is, because what we put in our mouth in the morning, specifically protein versus refined carbohydrates, has a profound impact on how our brain neurotransmitters function in terms of our like dopamine and serotonin and acetylcholine, and how these neurotransmitters affect our focus and our mood state. Is people eating earlier on in the day, specifically eating higher amounts of protein and fat, can benefit strongly from getting that food in, as it pertains to the decisions that they make later on in the day. Not only decisions revolving around making better food choices, but decisions around how it affects, their performance in the gym, their performance in the office, and total, optimal productivity. So that's why it's important for me to make sure that my kids are getting real food earlier on in the day. And that's also why I think it's important for most people to be getting breakfast in, assuming it's coming from whole foods, nutrient-dense foods. If you're the type of person that's only going to eat breakfast cereal or grab a pastry at Starbucks, then I'd say drink your black coffee, skip breakfast, and make sure you're eating, decent food between lunch and dinner. But people getting that breakfast in seems to set the stage for more productive food choices later on in the day, seems to get that blood sugar stabilized, so that we're not reaching for sweets and energy drinks and more coffee as the day goes on. And again, it's sort of this vicious cycle. And then going back to being proactive and not reactive is kind of mapping out what your day should look like. So many people that I consult with, we sit down and we talk about what they're eating, and they're kind of in this reactive mindset all day long. It's like, well, I didn't get up on time, and so I just grabbed a pastry, or I grabbed a granola bar because granola bars are healthy. And then it's sort of setting this up on this vicious blood sugar roller coaster throughout the day. And so that's why planning the night before can, in your journal, or at least writing it down, can be so beneficial for ensuring that you're making good decisions the rest of the day. And then when it comes to like the nighttime, then you can come back and you can say, how did I do today? Kind of grade yourself. What did I struggle with? What did I do well with? Write it all down so that you're acknowledging your wins, but then also identifying your weaknesses and things that you can do better with. And then the next day, kind of mapping out, okay, here's where I found that I struggled. Here's what I can do instead that's going to be a better decision, because all of these things revolve around our habits and making good nutrition habits. And the more you practice them, the more successful you'll be with them long term, but also the easier they become, to the degree that it's a non-issue now, like, to make good decisions at breakfast, or if I go out and grab breakfast, is I'm much more inclined to choose something healthy, or my clients are much more inclined to choose a healthier option than to opt for what they previously may have had, which is like, waffles and pancakes with syrup and whipped cream and sugary fruit and all that kind of crap. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will wrap it up here in a second. Anything else? Okay, cool. So we'll call that a day. I wish there was a yeah, Justin, thanks, brother. I wish there was a healthy Pop-Tart. And the nature of the beast is, you know what? It's like, just do everything right the majority of the time, and be consistent with good nutrition the majority of time. Then when you eat a Pop-Tart, eat the shittiest Pop-Tart that you can find and enjoy it. And it's really a non-issue. Or it's like, people freak out when they find that I take my kids to go get donuts. Like, yeah, so what? Like, they're kids, I'm not going to raise my kids in America and be that type of parent that, is just dogmatic about nutrition and say you can't have any sugar whatsoever and everything you eat needs to be organic. Like, I just don't, for me personally, I don't feel like that's the right way to parent in this day and age. And I don't think it's fair to my kids. And I don't think it's teaching them good nutrition habits. And I don't think it's teaching them a healthy relationship with food, to the degree that if I'm feeding them well the majority of the time, then, we can go get a donut and like they think it's awesome. And the reality is they barely eat it. Like Zoe will get the biggest, nastiest, like cream-filled Oreo cookie on top donut, and she'll sit down and she'll just kind of pick at some of the frosting and maybe eat one of the Oreos and maybe have a bite. And it's like, she doesn't even eat it. The kids really don't eat very much of it. And so I feel like that's a good middle ground. And I feel like that's the idea that we should have revolving around our nutrition in general is, be consistent, be pretty good most of the time. As opposed to trying to be great sometimes. That's what I tend to say a lot. And so, yeah, man, Pop-Tarts, like, nothing wrong with it. Enjoy it. And that's kind of what I think most people need to keep in mind with their relationship with food is don't try and be perfect, because what happens is we start a diet plan on Monday and we're eating great. And then we're in the office, it's 3 p.m. We feel like our energy's slacking. Someone brought in cake. It's a birthday. And then I eat a piece of cake because I just don't have any willpower left after trying to make so many decisions already in the day. And then I'm just like, screw it. I already blew the diet. So now I'm just going to be like, whatever, like I'm just going to eat whatever. And I'll start again on the next Monday. And it's sort of this vicious cycle that we get into, as opposed to thinking like, hey, it's been a great week. I've been eating pretty darn good. I've been kind of, planning what I'm going to be eating. I've been getting better day to day. I've been cognizant and aware of what's going in my mouth. And you know what? I'm going to have a piece of cake and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to work out later, and it's a non-issue. And even if I wasn't going to work out, like I've been working out consistently, and I know that I'm already creating a pretty good caloric deficit, and like, okay, cool, enjoy it. And don't stress yourself, and don't make yourself feel guilty over it or shame yourself for it, because it's just food. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. And then go right back to, okay, and now I'm going to start feeding myself the way I deserve to eat, with healthy foods, the way that's in line with my goals. And if we can keep that mentality, I think that's something I'm just going to keep coming back to. But if we can keep that mentality, then I think a lot of people would be in a much better place in our society. So with that said, we're going to wrap it up. But what I'd love for you guys to do is I'd love for you to comment below. I'm going to make a habit. I'm going to make a point of doing these Facebook Lives. I'll try and do one a week. I think that's probably a realistic thing for me to commit to, is doing one of these Facebook Lives once a week. What I'd love for you to do is to let me know what questions you have about nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, supplementation. I'd like to know what resonated with you out of this talk, if there's anything that was like an aha for you. And then what would be really valuable for me would be for you to tag someone that you think, tag them in the comments below, that you think would resonate with something that we talked about throughout this call in terms of our kind of morning ritual, waking up, getting hydrated, utilizing the morning elixir I talked about. And then if you're not already on our BSL, like our BSL page, make sure to follow so that you're notified when these Facebook Lives jump up. And again, let me know what questions you have so that I can try and offer some value for you. Appreciate you guys so much. Again, this is Ben Brown with BSL Nutrition, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.